Hadith 1. Narrated Abu Bakr, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Someone came to me from my Lord and gave me the news, or good tidings, that if any of my followers dies worshipping none, in any way, along with Allah, he will enter paradise. I asked, even if he committed illegal sexual intercourse, adultery, and theft? He replied, even if he committed illegal sexual intercourse, adultery, and theft. Hadith 2. Narrated Abdullah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Anyone who dies worshipping others along with Allah will definitely enter the fire. I said, anyone who dies worshipping none along with Allah will definitely enter paradise. Hadith 3. Narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered us to do 7 things and forbade us to do other 7. He ordered us to follow the funeral procession, to visit the sick, to accept invitations, to help the oppressed, to fulfill the oaths, to return the greeting and to reply to the sneezer, saying, May Allah be merciful on you, provided the sneezer says, All the praises are for Allah. He forbade us to use silver utensils and dishes and to wear golden rings, silk, clothes, dibaj, pure silk cloth, kasi and istabrak, 2 kinds of silk cloths. Hadith 4. Narrated Abu Hurairah, I heard Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, The rights of a Muslim on the Muslims are 5, to respond to the salam, visiting the sick, to follow the funeral processions, to accept an invitation, and to reply to those who sneeze. Hadith 5. Narrated Aisha, Abu Bakr came riding his horse from his dwelling place in As-Sun. He got down from it, entered the mosque and did not speak with anybody till he came to me and went directly to the Prophet, who was covered with a marked blanket. Abu Bakr uncovered his face. He knelt down and kissed him and then started weeping and said, My father and my mother be sacrificed for you, O Allah's Prophet. Allah will not combine 2 deaths on you. You have died the death which was written for you. Narrated Abu Salama from Ibn Abbas, Abu Bakr came out and Umar was addressing the people, and Abu Bakr told him to sit down, but Umar refused. Abu Bakr again told him to sit down, but Umar again refused. Then Abu Bakr recited the tashahhud, that is, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and the people attended to Abu Bakr and left Umar. Abu Bakr said, Amma ba'du, whoever amongst you worshipped Muhammad, then Muhammad is dead, but whoever worshipped Allah, Allah is alive and will never die. Allah said, Muhammad is no more than an apostle and indeed, many apostles have passed away before him. Up to the Grateful. Surah 3, Ayah 144. The narrator added, By Allah, it was as if the people never knew that Allah had revealed this verse before till Abu Bakr recited it, and then whoever heard it, started reciting it. Hadith 6. Narrated Kharijah bin Zayd bin Thabit, al-Allah, an Ansari woman who gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to me, The emigrants were distributed amongst us by drawing lots, and we got in our share Uthman bin Mazun. We made him stay with us in our house. Then he suffered from a disease which proved fatal. When he died and was given a bath and was shrouded in his clothes, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, came. I said, May Allah be merciful to you, O Abu Asab. I testify that Allah has honored you. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, How do you know that Allah has honored him? I replied, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Let my father be sacrificed for you. On whom else shall Allah bestow his honor? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, No doubt, death came to him. By Allah, I too wish him good, but by Allah, I do not know what Allah will do with me, though I am Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. By Allah, I never attested the piety of anyone after that. Al-Layth also narrated as above. Hadith 7. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, when my father was martyred, I lifted the sheet from his face and wept, and the people forbade me to do so, but the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not forbid me. Then my aunt Fatima began weeping, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "It is all the same whether you weep or not. The angels were shading him continuously with their wings till you shifted him from the field." Hadith 8. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, informed the people about the death of An-Najashi on the very day he died. He went towards the Musalla, praying place, and the people stood behind him in rows. He said 4 takbirs, that is, offered the funeral prayer. Hadith 9. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Zayd took over the flag and was martyred. Then it was taken by Ja'far, who was martyred as well. Then Abdullah bin Rawaha took the flag, but he too was martyred, and at that time the eyes of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, were full of tears. Then Khalid bin al-Walid took the flag without being nominated as a chief beforehand, and was blessed with victory. Hadith 10. Narrated Ibn Abbas, a person died and Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, used to visit him. He died at night and, the people, buried him at night. In the morning they informed the Prophet about his death. He said, "What prevented you from informing me?" They replied, "It was night and it was a dark night, and so we disliked to trouble you." The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went to his grave and offered the funeral prayer. Hadith 11. Narrated Anas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "A Muslim whose 3 children die before the age of puberty will be granted paradise by Allah due to his mercy for them." Hadith 12. Narrated Abu Sa'id, the women requested the Prophet, "Please fix a day for us." So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, preached to them and said, "A woman whose 3 children died would be screened from the hell fire by them." Hearing that, a woman asked, "If 2 died?" The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, replied, "Even 2 would screen her from the hell fire." And Abu Hurairah added, "Those children should be below the age of puberty." Hadith 13. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "No Muslim whose 3 children died will go to the fire, except for Allah's oath, that is, everyone has to pass over the bridge above the lake of fire." Hadith 14. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, passed by a woman who was sitting and weeping beside a grave and said to her, "Fear Allah and be patient." Hadith 15. Narrated Atiyya al-Ansariyya, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, came to us when his daughter died and said, "Wash her thrice or 5 times or more, if you see it necessary, with water and Sidr, and then apply camphor or some camphor at the end, and when you finish, notify me." So when we finished it, we informed him, and he gave us his waist sheet and told us to shroud the dead body in it. Hadith 16. Narrated Atiyya, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, came to us and we were giving a bath to his dead daughter and said, "Wash her 3, 5 or more times with water and Sidr and sprinkle camphor on her at the end, and when you finish, notify me." So when we finished, we informed him, and he gave us his waist sheet and told us to shroud her in it. Ayyub said that Hafsah narrated to him a narration similar to that of Muhammad, in which it was said that the bath was to be given for an odd number of times, and the numbers 3, 5 or 7 were mentioned. It was also said that they were to start with the right side and with the parts which were washed in ablution, and that Atiyya also mentioned, "We combed her hair and divided them in 3 braids." Hadith 17. Narrated Atiyya, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, concerning his dead daughter's bath, said, "Start with the right side, and the parts which are washed in ablution." Hadith 18. Narrated Atiyya, when we washed the deceased daughter of the Prophet, he said to us, while we were washing her, start the bath from the right side and from the parts which are washed in ablution. Hadith 19. Narrated Atiyah, the daughter of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, expired, and he said to us, wash her 3 or 5 times, or more if you see it necessary, and when you finish, notify me. So, when we finished, we informed him, and he unfastened his waist sheet and told us to shroud her in it. Hadith 20. Narrated Muhammad, Atiyah said, one of the daughters of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, died and he came out and said, wash her 3 or 5 times or more, if you think it necessary, with water and Sidr, and last of all put camphor, or some camphor, and when you finish, inform me. Atiyah added, when we finished, we informed him, and he gave us his waist sheet and said, shroud her in it. And Atiyah, in another narration, added, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, wash her 3, 5 or 7 times or more, if you think it necessary. Hafsah said that Atiyah had also said, we entwined her hair into 3 braids. Hadith 21. Narrated Hafsah bint Sirin, Atiyah said that they had entwined the hair of the daughter of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, in 3 braids. They first undid her hair, washed and then entwined it in 3 braids. Hadith 22. Narrated Ibn Sirin, Atiyah, an Ansari woman who gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came to Basra to visit her son, but she could not find him. She narrated to us, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came to us while we were giving bath to his dead daughter. He said, wash her 3 times, 5 times or more, if you think it necessary, with water and Sidr, and last of all put camphor, and when you finish, notify me. Atiyah added, after finishing, we informed him, and he gave us his waist sheet and told us to shroud her in it, and did not say more than that. Hadith 23. Narrated Atiyah, we entwined the hair of the dead daughter of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, into 3 braids. Waqi said that Sufyan said, 1 braid was entwined in front and the other 2 were entwined on the sides of the head. Hadith 24. Narrated Atiyah, one of the daughters of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, expired and he came to us and said, wash her with Sidr, water, for odd number of times, that is, 3, 5 or more, if you think it necessary, and in the last, put camphor or some camphor on her, and when you finish, notify me. So when we finished, we informed him. He gave his waist sheet to us, to shroud her. We entwined the hair of the deceased girl in 3 braids and made them fall at her back. Hadith 25. Narrated Aisha, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was shrouded in 3 Yemenite white suhuliyah, pieces of cloth, of cotton, and in them there was neither a shirt nor a turban. Hadith 26. Narrated Ibn Abbas, while a man was riding his mount in Arafat, he fell down from it, his mount, and broke his neck, and died. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, wash him with water and Sidr and shroud him in 2 pieces of cloth, and neither perfume him, nor cover his head, for he will be resurrected on the day of resurrection saying, Labbaik, that is, like a pilgrim. Hadith 27. Narrated Ibn Abbas, while a man was at Arafat for Hajj, with Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, he fell down from his mount and broke his neck, and died. So Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, wash him with water and Sidr and shroud him in 2 pieces of cloth, and neither perfume him nor cover his head, for Allah will resurrect him on the day of resurrection and he will be saying, Labbaik. Hadith 28. Narrated Ibn Abbas, a man was killed by his camel while we were with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and he was a Muhrim. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, wash him with water and Sidr and shroud him in 2 pieces of cloth, and neither perfume him nor cover his head, for Allah will resurrect him on the day of resurrection and he will be saying, Labbaik. Hadith 29. Narrated Ibn Abbas, a man fell from his mount and died while he was with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, at Arafat. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, wash him with water and Sidr and shroud him in 2 pieces of cloth, and neither perfume him nor cover his head, for he will be resurrected on the day of resurrection saying, Labbaik. Hadith 30. Narrated Ibn Umar, when Abdullah bin Ubay, the chief of hypocrites, died, his son came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Please give me your shirt to shroud him in it, offer his funeral prayer and ask for Allah's forgiveness for him. So Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, gave his shirt to him and said, inform me, when the funeral is ready, so that I may offer the funeral prayer. So he informed him, and when the Prophet intended to offer the funeral prayer, Umar took hold of his hand and said, has Allah not forbidden you to offer the funeral prayer for the hypocrites? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, I have been given the choice, for Allah says, it does not avail, whether you, O Muhammad, ask forgiveness for them, hypocrites, or do not ask for forgiveness for them. Even though you ask for their forgiveness 70 times, Allah will not forgive them. Surah 9, Ayah 80. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the funeral prayer, and on that the revelation came, and never, O Muhammad, pray, funeral prayer, for any of them, that is, hypocrites, that dies. Surah 9, Ayah 84. Hadith 31. Narrated Jabir, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came to the grave of Abdullah bin Ubay after his body was buried. The body was brought out and then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, put his saliva over the body and clothed it in his shirt. Hadith 32. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was shrouded in 3 pieces of cloth which were made of suhul, a type of cotton, and neither a shirt nor a turban were used. Hadith 33. Narrated Aisha, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was shrouded in 3 pieces of cloth, and neither a shirt nor a turban were used. Hadith 34. Narrated Aisha, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was shrouded in 3 pieces of cloth which were made of white suhul, and neither a shirt nor a turban were used. Hadith 35. Narrated Sa'd from his father, once the meal of Abdur Rahman bin Auf was brought in front of him, and he said, Musab bin Umayr was martyred and he was better than I, and he had nothing except his board, a black square narrow dress, to be shrouded in. Hamza or another person was martyred and he was also better than I, and he had nothing to be shrouded in, except his board. No doubt, I fear that the rewards of my deeds might have been given early in this world. Then he started weeping. Hadith 36. Narrated Ibrahim, once a meal was brought to Abdur Rahman bin Auf and he was fasting. He said, Musab bin Umayr was martyred and he was better than I, and was shrouded in his board, and when his head was covered with it, his legs became bare, and when his legs were covered, his head got uncovered. Hamza was martyred and was better than I. Now the worldly wealth have been bestowed upon us, or said a similar thing. No doubt, I fear that the rewards of my deeds might have been given earlier in this world. Then he started weeping and left his food. Hadith 37. Narrated Khabbab, we emigrated with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in Allah's cause, and so our reward was then surely incumbent on Allah. Some of us died, and they did not take anything from their rewards in this world, and amongst them was Musab bin Umayr, and the others were those who got their rewards. Musab bin Umayr was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud, and we could get nothing except his board to shroud him in. And when we covered his head, his feet became bare and vice versa. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered us to cover his head only and to put idkir, a kind of shrub, over his feet. Hadith 38. Narrated Sahih, a woman brought a woven burda, sheet, having edging, border, to the Prophet. Then Sahih asked them whether they knew what is burda. They said that burda is a cloak, and Sahih confirmed their reply. Then the woman said, I have woven it with my own hands, and I have brought it so that you may wear it. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, accepted it, and at that time he was in need of it. So he came out wearing it as his waist sheet. A man praised it and said, Will you give it to me? How nice it is! The other people said, You have not done the right thing, as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is in need of it, and you have asked for it when you know that he never turns down anybody's request. The man replied, By Allah, I have not asked for it to wear it, but to make it my shroud. Later it was his shroud. Hadith 39. Narrated Atiyah, we were forbidden to accompany funeral processions, but not strictly. Hadith 40. Narrated Muhammad bin Sirin, one of the sons of Atiyah died, and when it was the third day, she asked for a yellow perfume and put it over her body, and said, We were forbidden to mourn for more than 3 days except for our husbands. Hadith 41. Narrated Zainab bint Abi Salama, when the news of the death of Abu Sufyan reached from Sham, Habibah on the third day, asked for a yellow perfume and scented her cheeks and forearms and said, No doubt, I would not have been in need of this, had I not heard the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, It is not legal for a woman who believes in Allah and the last day to mourn for more than 3 days for any dead person except her husband, for whom she should mourn for 4 months and 10 days. Hadith 42. Narrated Zainab bint Abi Salama, I went to Habibah, the wife of the Prophet, who said, I heard the Prophet saying, It is not legal for a woman who believes in Allah and the last day to mourn for any dead person for more than 3 days except for her husband, for whom she should mourn, for 4 months and 10 days. Later I went to Zainab bint Jahash when her brother died. She asked for some scent, and after using it she said, I am not in need of scent, but I heard Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, It is not legal for a woman who believes in Allah and the last day to mourn for more than 3 days for any dead person except her husband, for whom she should mourn, for 4 months and 10 days. Hadith 43. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, passed by a woman who was weeping beside a grave. He told her to fear Allah and be patient. She said to him, Go away, for you have not been afflicted with a calamity like mine. And she did not recognize him. Then she was informed that he was the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, so she went to the house of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and there she did not find any guard. Then she said to him, I did not recognize you. He said, Verily, the patience is at the first stroke of a calamity. Hadith 44. Narrated Usama bin Zaid, the daughter of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, sent a messenger to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, requesting him to come as her child was dying, or was gasping, but the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, returned the messenger and told him to convey his greeting to her and say, Whatever Allah takes is for him, and whatever he gives is for him, and everything with him has a limited fixed term, in this world, and so she should be patient and hope for Allah's reward. She again sent for him, swearing that he should come. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, got up, and so did Sa'd bin Ubadah, Mu'ad bin Jabal, Ubay bin Ka'b, Zayd bin Thabit and some other men. The child was brought to Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, while his breath was disturbed in his chest. The sub-narrator thinks that Usama added, as if it was a leather water skin. On that, the eyes of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, started shedding tears. Sa'd said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. What is this? He replied, It is mercy which Allah has lodged in the hearts of his slaves, and Allah is merciful only to those of his slaves who are merciful to others. Hadith 45. Narrated Anas bin Malik, we were, in the funeral procession, of one of the daughters of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and he was sitting by the side of the grave. I saw his eyes shedding tears. He said, "Is there anyone among you who did not have sexual relations with his wife last night?" Abu Talha replied in the affirmative. And so the Prophet told him to get down in the grave. And so he got down in her grave. Hadith 46. Narrated Abdullah bin Ubaidullah bin Abi Mulaika, one of the daughters of Uthman, died at Makkah. We went to attend her funeral procession. Ibn Umar and Ibn Abbas were also present. I sat in between them, or said, I sat beside one of them. Then a man came and sat beside me. Abdullah bin Umar said to Umar bin Uthman, "Will you not prohibit crying, as Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, has said, the dead person is tortured by the crying of his relatives?" Ibn Abbas said, "Umar used to say so." Then he added, narrating, I accompanied Umar on a journey from Makkah till we reached Al-Bayda. There he saw some travelers in the shade of a samura, a kind of forest tree. He said to me, "Go and see who those travelers are." So I went and saw that one of them was Suhaib. I told this to Umar, who then asked me to call him. So I went back to Suhaib and said to him, "Depart and follow the chief of the faithful believers." Later, when Umar was stabbed, Suhaib came in weeping and saying, "O my brother, O my friend." On this Umar said to him, "O Suhaib, are you weeping for me?" While the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The dead person is punished by some of the weeping of his relatives." Ibn Abbas added, when Umar died, I told all this to Aisha and she said, "May Allah be merciful to Umar. By Allah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, did not say that a believer is punished by the weeping of his relatives. But he said, Allah increases the punishment of a non-believer because of the weeping of his relatives." Aisha further added, "The Quran is sufficient for you, to clear up this point, as Allah has stated, no burdened soul will bear another's burden." Surah 35, Ayah 18. Ibn Abbas then said, "Only Allah makes one laugh or cry." Ibn Umar did not say anything after that. Hadith 47. Narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, once Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, passed by the grave of a Jewess whose relatives were weeping over her. He said, "They are weeping over her, and she is being tortured in her grave." Hadith 48. Narrated Abu Burda, that his father said, when Umar was stabbed, Suhaib started crying, "O my brother." Umar said, "Don't you know that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the deceased is tortured for the weeping of the living?" Hadith 49. Narrated Al-Mughira, I heard the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, "Ascribing false things to me is not like ascribing false things to anyone else. Whosoever tells a lie against me intentionally, then surely let him occupy his seat in hellfire." I heard the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, "The deceased who is wailed over is tortured for that wailing." Hadith 50. Narrated Ibn Umar from his father, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The deceased is tortured in his grave for the wailing done over him." Narrated Shu'abah, the deceased is tortured for the wailing of the living ones over him. Hadith 51. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, on the day of the battle of Uhud, my father was brought and he had been mutilated, in battle, and was placed in front of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and a sheet was over him. I went, intending to uncover my father, but my people forbade me. Again I wanted to uncover him, but my people forbade me. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, gave his order and he was shifted away. At that time, he heard the voice of a crying woman and asked, "Who is this?" They said, "It is the daughter or the sister of Umar." He said, "Why does she weep? Or let her stop weeping, for the angels had been shading him with their wings till he, that is, the body of the martyr, was shifted away." Hadith 52. Narrated Abdullah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "He who slaps his cheeks, tears his clothes and follows the ways and traditions of the days of ignorance is not one of us." Hadith 53. Narrated Amr bin Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, that his father said, "In the year of the last Hajj of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, I became seriously ill and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to visit me inquiring about my health. I told him, I am reduced to this state because of illness, and I am wealthy and have no inheritors except a daughter." In this narration the name of Amr bin Sa'd is mentioned and in fact it is a mistake. The narrator is Aisha bin Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. "Should I give 2/3 of my property in charity?" He said, "No." I asked, "Half?" He said, "No." Then he added, 1/3, and even 1/3 is much. You'd better leave your inheritors wealthy rather than leaving them poor, begging others. You will get a reward for whatever you spend for Allah's sake, even for what you put in your wife's mouth. I said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Will I be left alone after my companions have gone?" He said, "If you are left behind, whatever good deeds you will do will upgrade you and raise you high. And perhaps you will have a long life so that some people will be benefited by you while others will be harmed by you. O Allah, complete the emigration of my companions and do not turn them renegades." But Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, felt sorry for poor Sa'd bin Khaula as he died in Makkah. But Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas lived long after the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Hadith 54. Narrated Abu Burda bin Abi Musa, Abu Musa got seriously ill, fainted and could not reply to his wife while he was lying with his head in her lap. When he came to his senses, he said, "I am innocent of those, of whom Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was innocent. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, is innocent of a woman who cries aloud, or slaps her face, who shaves her head, and who tears off her clothes, on the falling of a calamity." Hadith 55. Narrated Abdullah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "He who slaps the cheeks, tears the clothes and follows the tradition of the days of ignorance is not from us." Hadith 56. Narrated Abdullah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "He who slaps the cheeks, tears the clothes and follows the traditions of the days of ignorance is not from us." Hadith 57. Narrated Aisha, when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, got the news of the death of Ibn Haritha, Ja'far and Ibn Rawaha, he sat down and looked sad, and I was looking at him through the chink of the door. A man came and told him about the crying of the women of Ja'far. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered him to forbid them. The man went and came back, saying that he had told them but they did not listen to him. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Forbid them." So again he went and came back, for the third time and said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. By Allah, they did not listen to us at all." Aisha added, "Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered him to go and put dust in their mouths." I said, to that man, "May Allah stick your nose in the dust, that is, humiliate you. You could neither persuade the women to fulfill the order of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, nor did you relieve Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, from fatigue." Hadith 58. Narrated Anas, when the reciters of Quran were martyred, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, recited Hanut for 1 month, and I never saw him, that is, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, so sad as he was on that day. Hadith 59. Narrated Anas bin Malik, one of the sons of Abu Talha became sick and died, and Abu Talha at that time was not at home. When his wife saw that he was dead, she prepared him, washed and shrouded him, and placed him somewhere in the house. When Abu Talha came, he asked, "How is the boy?" She said, "The child is quiet and I hope he is in peace." Abu Talha thought that she had spoken the truth. Abu Talha passed the night, and in the morning took a bath, and when he intended to go out, she told him that his son had died. Abu Talha offered the morning prayer with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and informed the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, of what happened to them. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, May Allah bless you concerning your night. That is, may Allah bless you with good offspring. Sufyan said, one of the Ansar said, they, that is, Abu Talha and his wife, had 9 sons and all of them became reciters of the Quran, by heart. Hadith 60. Narrated on us, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the real patience is at the first stroke of a calamity. Hadith 61. Narrated Anas bin Malik, we went with Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, to the blacksmith Abu Saif, and he was the husband of the wet nurse of Ibrahim, the son of the Prophet. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, took Ibrahim and kissed him and smelled him, and later we entered Abu Saif's house and at that time Ibrahim was in his last breaths, and the eyes of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, started shedding tears. Abdur Rahman bin Auf said, O Allah's Apostle, even you are weeping. He said, O Ibn Auf, this is mercy. Then he wept more and said, the eyes are shedding tears and the heart is grieved, and we will not say except what pleases our Lord. O Ibrahim! Indeed we are grieved by your separation. Hadith 62. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, Sa'd bin Ubadah became sick and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, along with Abdur Rahman bin Auf, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas and Abdullah bin Mas'ud visited him to inquire about his health. When he came to him, he found him surrounded by his household and he asked, has he died? They said, no, O Allah's Apostle. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, wept and when the people saw the weeping of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, they all wept. He said, will you listen? Allah does not punish for shedding tears, nor for the grief of the heart, but he punishes or bestows his mercy because of this. He pointed to his tongue and added, the deceased is punished for the wailing of his relatives over him. Umar used to beat with a stick and throw stones and put dust over the faces of those who used to wail over the dead. Hadith 63. Narrated Aisha, when the news of the martyrdom of Zayd bin Haritha, Ja'far and Abdullah bin Rawaha came, the Prophet sat down looking sad, and I was looking through the chink of the door. A man came and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. The women of Ja'far, and then he mentioned their crying. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered him to stop them from crying. The man went and came back and said, I tried to stop them but they disobeyed. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered him for the second time to forbid them. He went again and came back and said, they did not listen to me, or us. The sub-narrator Muhammad bin Hawshab is in doubt as to which is right. Aisha added, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, put dust in their mouths. I said, to that man, may Allah stick your nose in the dust, that is, humiliate you. By Allah, you could not stop the women from crying, to fulfill the order, besides you did not relieve Allah's Apostle from fatigue. Hadith 64. Narrated Mariyah, at the time of giving the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, one of the conditions was that we would not wail, but it was not fulfilled except by 5 women, and they are Sulaim, Al-Ala, the daughter of Abi Sabra, the wife of Mu'ad, and 2 other women, or the daughter of Abi Sabra and the wife of Mu'ad and another woman. Hadith 65. Narrated Amr bin Rabi'ah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whenever you see a funeral procession, stand up till the procession goes ahead of you. Al-Humaydi added, till the coffin leaves you behind or is put down. Hadith 66. Narrated Amr bin Rabi'ah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if any one of you sees a funeral procession and he is not going along with it, then he should stand and remain standing till he gets behind it, or it leaves him behind, or the coffin is put down before it goes ahead of him. Hadith 67. Narrated Sa'id al-Makburi, that his father said, while we were accompanying a funeral procession, Abu Hurairah got hold of the hand of Marwan and they sat down before the coffin was put down. Then Abu Sa'id came and took hold of Marwan's hand and said, "Get up. By Allah, no doubt this, that is, Abu Hurairah, knows that the Prophet forbade us to do that." Abu Hurairah said, "He, Abu Sa'id, has spoken the truth." Hadith 68. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "When you see a funeral procession, you should stand up, and whoever accompanies it should not sit till the coffin is put down." Hadith 69. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, a funeral procession passed in front of us and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stood up and we too stood up. We said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. This is the funeral procession of a Jew." He said, "Whenever you see a funeral procession, you should stand up." Hadith 70. Narrated Abdur Rahman bin Abi Layla, Sahal bin Hunayf and Qais bin Sa'd were sitting in the city of Al-Qadisiyah. A funeral procession passed in front of them and they stood up. They were told that funeral procession was of one of the inhabitants of the land, that is, of a non-believer, under the protection of Muslims. They said, "A funeral procession passed in front of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and he stood up. When he was told that it was the coffin of a Jew, he said, 'Is it not a living being, soul?'" Hadith 71. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "When the funeral is ready and the men carry it on their shoulders, if the deceased was righteous it will say, 'Present me,' hurriedly, and if he was not righteous, it will say, 'Woe to it, me. Where are they taking it, me?' Its voice is heard by everything except man, and if he heard it he would fall unconscious." Hadith 72. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Hurry up with the dead body, for if it was righteous, you are forwarding it to welfare, and if it was otherwise, then you are putting off an evil thing down your necks." Hadith 73. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "When a funeral is ready and the men carry the deceased on their necks, shoulders, if it was pious then it will say, 'Present me quickly,' and if it was not pious, then it will say, 'Woe to it, me, where are they taking it, me?' And its voice is heard by everything except mankind, and if he heard it he would fall unconscious." Hadith 74. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the funeral prayer for An-Najashi, and I was in the second or third row. Hadith 75. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, informed his companions about the death of An-Najashi, and then he went ahead, to lead the prayer, and the people lined up behind him in rows, and he said 4 takbir. Hadith 76. Narrated Ash-Shaybani, Ash-Shu'abi said, "I was informed by a man who had seen the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, going to a grave that was separate from the other graves, and he aligned the people in rows and said 4 takbir. I said, 'O Abu Amr, who narrated that to you?' He said, 'Ibn Abbas.'" Hadith 77. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Today a pious man from Ethiopia, that is, a Najashi, has expired, come on to offer the funeral prayer." Jabir said, "We lined up in rows, and after that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, led the prayer and we were in rows." Jabir added, "I was in the second row." Hadith 78. Narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, passed by a grave of a deceased who had been buried at night. He said, "When was this deceased buried?" The people said, "Yesterday." He said, why did you not inform me? They said, we buried him when it was dark, and so we disliked to wake you up. He stood up and we lined up behind him. Ibn Abbas said, I was one of them, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the funeral prayer. Hadith 79. Narrated Ash-Shaybani, Ash-Shu'abi said, somebody who passed along with your Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, by a grave that was separate from the other graves informed me, saying, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, led us, in the prayer, and we aligned behind him. We said, O Abu Amr, who told you this narration? He replied, Ibn Abbas. Hadith 80. Narrated Nafi, Ibn Umar was told that Abu Hurairah said, whoever accompanies the funeral procession will have a reward equal to 1 qirat. Ibn Umar said, Abu Hurairah talks of a too enormous reward. Aisha attested Abu Hurairah's narration and said, I heard Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, saying like that. Ibn Umar said, we have lost numerous qirats. Hadith 81. Narrated Abu Hurairah that Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever attends the funeral procession till he offers the funeral prayer for it, will get a reward equal to 1 qirat, and whoever accompanies it till burial, will get a reward equal to 2 qirats. It was asked, what are 2 qirats? He replied, like 2 huge mountains. Hadith 82. Narrated Amr, Ibn Abbas, who was at that time a boy, said, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, came to a grave and the people said, he or she was buried yesterday. Ibn Abbas added, we aligned behind the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and he led the funeral prayer of the deceased. Hadith 83. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, informed about the news of the death of An-Najashi, king of Ethiopia, on the day he expired. He said, ask Allah's forgiveness for your brother. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, made them align in rows at the musalla and said 4 takbir. Hadith 84. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, the Jew brought to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, a man and a woman from amongst them who had committed adultery, illegal sexual intercourse. He ordered both of them to be stoned to death, near the place of offering the funeral prayers beside the mosque. Hadith 85. Narrated Urwa, Aisha said, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in his fatal illness said, Allah cursed the Jews and the Christians because they took the graves of their prophets as places for praying. Aisha added, had it not been for that, the grave of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would have been made prominent, but I am afraid it might be taken as a place for praying. Hadith 86. Narrated Samurah bin Jundub, I offered the funeral prayer behind the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, for a woman who had died during childbirth, and he stood up by the middle of the coffin. Hadith 87. Narrated Samurah bin Jundub, I offered the funeral prayer behind the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, for a woman who had died during childbirth, and he stood up by the middle of the coffin. Hadith 88. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, informed us about the news of the death of An-Najashi on the day he died. He went out with us to the musalla and we aligned in rows, and he said 4 takbirs for An-Najashi's funeral prayer. Hadith 89. Narrated Jabir, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the funeral prayer of Ashama An-Najashi and said 4 takbir. Hadith 90. Narrated Talha bin Abdullah bin Auf, I offered the funeral prayer behind Ibn Abbas and he recited Al-Fatiha and said, you should know that it, that is, recitation of Al-Fatiha, is the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Hadith 91. Narrated Sulaiman Ash-Shaybani, I heard Ash-Shu'abi saying, I was told by a man who had passed with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, by a grave that was separate from the other graves that he, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, led them in the prayer and they prayed behind him. I said, O Abu Amr, who narrated that to you? He replied, Ibn Abbas. Hadith 92. Narrated Abu Hurairah, a black person, a male or a female used to clean the mosque and then died. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not know about it. One day the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, remembered him and said, What happened to that person? The people replied, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. He died. He said, Why did you not inform me? They said, His story was so and so, that is, regarded him as insignificant. He said, Show me his grave. He then went to his grave and offered the funeral prayer. Hadith 93. Narrated on us, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, When a human being is laid in his grave and his companions return and he even hears their footsteps, 2 angels come to him and make him sit and ask him, What did you use to say about this man, Muhammad? He will say, I testify that he is Allah's slave and his apostle. Then it will be said to him, Look at your place in the hellfire. Allah has given you a place in paradise instead of it. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, added, The dead person will see both his places. But a non-believer or a hypocrite will say to the angels, I do not know, but I used to say what the people used to say. It will be said to him, Neither did you know nor did you take the guidance, by reciting the Quran. Then he will be hit with an iron hammer between his 2 ears, and he will cry, and that cry will be heard by whatever approaches him except human beings and jinns. Hadith 94. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the angel of death was sent to Moses, and when he went to him, Moses slapped him severely, spoiling one of his eyes. The angel went back to his Lord, and said, You sent me to a slave who does not want to die. Allah restored his eye and said, Go back and tell him, that is, Moses, to place his hand over the back of an ox, for he will be allowed to live for a number of years equal to the number of hairs coming under his hand. So the angel came to him and told him the same. Then Moses asked, O my Lord, what will be then? He said, Death will be then. He said, Let it be, now. He asked Allah that he bring him near the sacred land at a distance of a stone's throw. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Were I there, I would show you the grave of Moses by the way near the red sand hill. Hadith 95. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the funeral prayer of a man one night after he was buried. He and his companions stood up, for the prayer. He had asked them about him before standing, saying, Who is this? They said, He is so and was buried last night. So all of them offered the funeral prayer. Hadith 96. Narrated Aisha, when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, became ill, some of his wives talked about a church which they had seen in Ethiopia, and it was called Maria. Salama and Habiba had been to Ethiopia, and both of them narrated the church's, beauty and the pictures it contained. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, raised his head and said, Those are the people who, whenever a pious man dies amongst them, make a place of worship at his grave, and then they make those pictures in it. Those are the worst creatures in the sight of Allah. Hadith 97. Narrated on us, we were in the funeral procession of the daughter of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was sitting near the grave, and I saw his eyes full of tears. He said, Is there anyone amongst you who did not have sexual relations with his wife last night? Abu Talha replied in the affirmative. And so Allah's apostle told him to get down in her grave, and he got down in her grave and buried her. Hadith 98. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, collected every 2 martyrs of Uhud in one piece of cloth, then he would ask, which of them knew more of the Quran. When one of them was pointed out for him, he would put that one first in the grave and say, I will be a witness on these on the day of resurrection. He ordered them to be buried with their blood on their bodies, and they were neither washed nor was a funeral prayer offered for them. Hadith 99. Narrated Uqbah bin Amir, one day the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went out and offered the funeral prayers of the martyrs of Uhud, and then went up the pulpit and said, I will pave the way for you as your predecessor and will be a witness on you. By Allah! I see my fount, Kawthar, just now, and I have been given the keys of all the treasures of the earth, or the keys of the earth. By Allah! I am not afraid that you will worship others along with Allah after my death, but I am afraid that you will fight with one another for the worldly things. Hadith 100. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, buried every 2 martyrs of Uhud in one grave. Hadith 101. Narrated Jabir, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, bury them, that is, martyrs, with their blood. That was, on the day of the Battle of Uhud. He did not get them washed. Hadith 102. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, shrouded every 2 martyrs of Uhud in one piece of cloth, and then he would ask, which of them knew more Quran? When one of them was pointed out, he would put him first in the grave. He said, I am a witness on these. Then he ordered them to be buried with blood on their bodies. Neither did he offer their funeral prayer, nor did he get them washed. Jabir bin Abdullah added, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, used to ask about the martyrs of Uhud as to which of them knew more of the Quran. And when one of them was pointed out as having more of it, he would put him first in the grave and then his companions. Jabir added, my father and my uncle were shrouded in one sheet. Hadith 103. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Allah has made Makkah a sanctuary, sacred place, and it was a sanctuary before me and will be so after me. It was made legal for me, to fight in it, for a few hours of the day. None is allowed to uproot its thorny shrubs or to cut its trees or to chase its game or to pick up its fallen things except by a person who announces it publicly. On that, Al-Abbas said, to the Prophet, except Al-Idkir for our goldsmiths and for our graves. And so the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, added, except Al-Idkir. And Abu Hurairah narrated that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, except Al-Idkir for our graves and houses. And Ibn Abbas said, for their goldsmiths and houses. Hadith 104. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, came to Abdullah bin Ubay, a hypocrite, after his death, and he had been laid in his pit, grave. He ordered, that he be taken out of the grave, and he was taken out. Then he placed him on his knees and threw some of his saliva on him and clothed him in his, the Prophet's, own shirt. Allah knows better, why he did so. Abdullah bin Ubay had given his shirt to Al-Abbas to wear. Abu Harun said, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, at that time had 2 shirts, and the son of Abdullah bin Ubay said to him, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Clothe my father in your shirt which has been in contact with your skin. Sufyan added, thus people think that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, clothed Abdullah bin Ubay in his shirt in lieu of what he, Abdullah, had done, for Al-Abbas, the Prophet's uncle. Hadith 105. Narrated Jabir, when the time of the Battle of Uhud approached, my father called me at night and said, I think that I will be the first amongst the companions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to be martyred. I do not leave anyone after me dearer to me than you, except Allah's messengers, peace and blessings be upon him, soul, and I owe some debt and you should repay it and treat your sisters favorably, nicely and politely. So in the morning he was the first to be martyred and was buried along with another, martyr. I did not like to leave him with the other, martyr, so I took him out of the grave after 6 months of his burial, and he was in the same condition as he was on the day of burial, except a slight change near his ear. Hadith 106. Narrated Jabir, a man was buried along with my father, and I did not like it till I took him, that is, my father, out and buried him in a separate grave. Hadith 107. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, collected every 2 martyrs of Uhud, in one grave, and then he would ask, which of them knew the Quran more? And if one of them was pointed out for him as having more knowledge, he would put him first in the lahd. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, I will be a witness on these on the day of resurrection. Then he ordered them to be buried with their blood on their bodies, and he did not have them washed. Hadith 108. Narrated Ibn Umar set out along with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, with a group of people to Ibn Sayyad, till they saw him playing with the boys near the hillocks of Bani Magala. Ibn Sayyad at that time was nearing his puberty and did not notice us, until the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stroked him with his hand and said to him, Do you testify that I am Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him? Ibn Sayyad looked at him and said, I testify that you are the messenger of illiterates. Then Ibn Sayyad asked the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, Do you testify that I am Allah's messenger? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, refuted it and said, I believe in Allah and His apostles. Then he said, to Ibn Sayyad, What do you think? Ibn Sayyad answered, True people and liars visit me. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, You have been confused as to this matter. Then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, I have kept something, in my mind, for you, can you tell me that? Ibn Sayyad said, It is Al-Duk, the smoke. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Let you be in ignominy. You cannot cross your limits. On that, Umar said, O Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Allow me to chop his head off. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, If he is he, that is, Dajjal, then you cannot overpower him, and if he is not, then there is no use of murdering him. Ibn Umar added, Later on Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, once again went along with Ubay bin Ka'b to the date palm trees, garden, where Ibn Sayyad was staying. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, wanted to hear something from Ibn Sayyad before Ibn Sayyad could see him, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saw him lying covered with a sheet and from where his murmurs were heard. Ibn Sayyad's mother saw Allah's apostle while he was hiding himself behind the trunks of the date palm trees. She addressed Ibn Sayyad, O Saf. And this was the name of Ibn Sayyad, Here is Muhammad. And with that Ibn Sayyad got up. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Had this woman left him, had she not disturbed him, then Ibn Sayyad would have revealed the reality of his case. Hadith 109. Narrated on us, a young Jewish boy used to serve the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and he became sick. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went to visit him. He sat near his head and asked him to embrace Islam. The boy looked at his father, who was sitting there, the latter told him to obey Abul Qasim and the boy embraced Islam. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came out saying, Praises be to Allah who saved the boy from the hellfire. Hadith 110. Narrated Ibn Abbas, My mother and I were among the weak and oppressed. I, from among the children, and my mother from among the women. Hadith 111. Narrated Ibn Shihab, the funeral prayer should be offered for every child, even if he were the son of a prostitute, as he was born with a true faith of Islam, that is, to worship none but Allah alone. If his parents are Muslims, particularly the father, even if his mother were a non-Muslim, and if he after the delivery cries, even once, before his death, that is, born alive, then the funeral prayer must be offered. And if the child does not cry after his delivery, that is, born dead, then his funeral prayer should not be offered, and he will be considered as a miscarriage. Abu Hurairah narrated that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Every child is born with a true faith, that is, to worship none but Allah alone, but his parents convert him to Judaism or to Christianity or to Magianism, as an animal delivers a perfect baby animal. Do you find it mutilated?" Then Abu Hurairah recited the holy verses, "The pure Allah's Islamic nature, true faith, that is, to worship none but Allah alone, with which he has created human beings." Surah 30, Ayah 30. Hadith 112. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Every child is born with a true faith of Islam, that is, to worship none but Allah alone, but his parents convert him to Judaism, Christianity or Magianism, as an animal delivers a perfect baby animal. Do you find it mutilated?" Then Abu Hurairah recited the holy verses, "The pure Allah's Islamic nature, true faith of Islam, that is, worshipping none but Allah, with which he has created human beings. No change let there be in the religion of Allah, that is, joining none in worship with Allah. That is the straight religion, Islam, but most of men know not." Surah 30, Ayah 30. Hadith 113. Narrated Sa'id bin al-Musayyab from his father, when the time of the death of Abu Talib approached, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, went to him and found Abu Jahl bin Hisham and Abdullah bin Abi Umayyah bin al-Mughirah by his side. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said to Abu Talib, "O uncle, say, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, a sentence with which I shall be a witness, that is, argue, for you before Allah." Abu Jahl and Abdullah bin Abi Umayyah said, "O Abu Talib, are you going to denounce the religion of Abdul Muttalib?" Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, kept on inviting Abu Talib to say it, that is, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, while they, Abu Jahl and Abdullah, kept on repeating their statement, till Abu Talib said as his last statement that he was on the religion of Abdul Muttalib and refused to say, "None has the right to be worshipped but Allah." Then Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "I will keep on asking Allah's forgiveness for you, unless I am forbidden, by Allah, to do so." So Allah revealed the verse concerning him, that is, it is not fitting for the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and those who believe that they should invoke Allah for forgiveness for pagans, even though they be of kin, after it has become clear to them that they are companions of the fire. Surah 9, Ayah 113. Hadith 114. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, once passed by two graves, and those two persons, in the graves, were being tortured. He said, "They are being tortured not for a great thing, to avoid." One of them never saved himself from being soiled with his urine, while the other went about committing slander, to make enmity between friends. He then took a green leaf of a date palm tree, split it into two pieces, and fixed one on each grave. The people said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, why have you done so?" He replied, "I hope that their punishment may be lessened till they, the leaf, become dry." Hadith 115. Narrated Ali, we were accompanying a funeral procession in Baqi al-Gharqad. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came to us and we sat around him. He had a small stick in his hand, then he bent his head and started scraping the ground with it. He then said, "There is none among you, and not a created soul, but has place either in paradise or in hell assigned for him, and it is also determined for him whether he will be among the blessed or wretched." A man said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, should we not depend on what has been written for us and leave the deeds, as whoever amongst us is blessed will do the deeds of a blessed person, and whoever amongst us will be wretched, will do the deeds of a wretched person?" The Prophet said, "The good deeds are made easy for the blessed, and bad deeds are made easy for the wretched." Then he recited the verses, "As for him who gives, in charity, and is Allah-fearing and believes in the best reward from Allah." Surah 92, Ayat 5-6. Hadith 116. Narrated Thabit bin ad-Dahhak, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Whoever intentionally swears falsely by a religion other than Islam, then he is what he has said. For example, if he says, 'If such thing is not true, then I am a Jew,' he is really a Jew. And whoever commits suicide with piece of iron will be punished with the same piece of iron in the hell fire." Narrated Jundub, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "A man was inflicted with wounds and he committed suicide, and so Allah said, 'My slave has caused death on himself hurriedly, so I forbid paradise for him.'" Hadith 117. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "He who commits suicide by throttling shall keep on throttling himself in the hell fire, forever, and he who commits suicide by stabbing himself shall keep on stabbing himself in the hell fire." Hadith 118. Narrated Umar bin al-Khattab, when Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul died, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was called upon to offer his funeral prayer. When Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, stood up to offer the prayer, I got up quickly and said, "O Allah's Apostle, are you going to pray for Ibn Ubayy and he said so and so on such and such occasions?" And started mentioning all that he had said. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, smiled and said, "O Umar, go away from me. When I talked too much he said, I have been given the choice, and so I have chosen, to offer the prayer. Had I known that he would be forgiven by asking for Allah's forgiveness for more than 70 times, surely I would have done so." Umar added, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, offered his funeral prayer and returned, and after a short while the 2 verses of Surah Bara'ah were revealed, that is, "And never, O Muhammad, pray for any of them who dies." To the end of the verse, rebellion. Surah 9, Ayah 84. Umar added, "Later I was astonished at my daring before Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, on that day. And Allah and His Apostle know better." Hadith 119. Narrated Anas bin Malik, a funeral procession passed and the people praised the deceased. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "It has been affirmed to him." Then another funeral procession passed and the people spoke badly of the deceased. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "It has been affirmed to him." Umar bin al-Khattab asked, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, what has been affirmed? He replied, "You praised this, so paradise has been affirmed to him, and you spoke badly of this, so hell has been affirmed to him. You people are Allah's witnesses on earth." Hadith 120. Narrated Abu al-Aswad, I came to Medina when an epidemic had broken out. While I was sitting with Umar bin al-Khattab, a funeral procession passed by and the people praised the deceased. Umar said, "It has been affirmed to him." And another funeral procession passed by and the people praised the deceased. Umar said, "It has been affirmed to him." A third funeral procession passed by and the people spoke badly of the deceased. He said, "It has been affirmed to him." I, Abu al-Aswad, asked, "O chief of the believers, what has been affirmed?" He replied, "I said the same as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had said, that is, if 4 persons testify the piety of a Muslim, Allah will grant him paradise." We asked, if 3 persons testify his piety? He, the Prophet, replied, even 3. Then we asked, if 2? He replied, even 2. We did not ask him regarding 1 witness. Hadith 121. Narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, when a faithful believer is made to sit in his grave, then, the angels, come to him, and he testifies that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is Allah's apostle. And that corresponds to Allah's statement, Allah will keep firm those who believe with the word that stands firm. Surah 14, Ayah 27. Narrated Shu'abah, same as above, and added, Allah will keep firm those who believe. Surah 14, Ayah 27, was revealed concerning the punishment of the grave. Hadith 122. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, looked at the people of the well in which the bodies of the pagans killed in the battle of Badr were thrown, and said, Have you found true what your Lord promised you? Somebody said to him, You are addressing dead people. He replied, You do not hear better than they, but they cannot reply. Hadith 123. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, They now realize that what I used to tell them was the truth. And Allah said, Verily, you cannot make the dead to hear, that is, benefit them, and similarly the disbelievers, nor can you make the deaf hear. Hadith 124. Narrated Masruq, Aisha said that a Jewess came to her and mentioned the punishment in the grave, saying to her, May Allah protect you from the punishment of the grave. Aisha then asked Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, about the punishment of the grave. He said, Yes, there is punishment in the grave. Aisha added, After that, I never saw Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, but seeking refuge with Allah from the punishment in the grave in every prayer he prayed. Hadith 125. Narrated Asma bint Abu Bakr, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, once stood up delivering a sermon and mentioned the trial which people will face in the grave. When he mentioned that, the Muslims started shouting loudly. Hadith 126. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, When Allah's slave is put in his grave and his companions return and he even hears their footsteps, 2 angels come to him and make him sit and ask, What did you use to say about this man, that is, Muhammad? The faithful believer will say, I testify that he is Allah's slave and his apostle. Then they will say to him, Look at your place in the hell fire, Allah has given you a place in paradise instead of it. So he will see both his places. Qatada said, We were informed that his grave would be made spacious. Then Qatada went back to the narration of Anas who said, Whereas a hypocrite or a non-believer will be asked, What did you use to say about this man? He will reply, I do not know, but I used to say what the people used to say. So they will say to him, Neither did you know, nor did you take the guidance, by reciting the Quran. Then he will be hit with iron hammers once, that he will send such a cry as everything near to him will hear, except jinns and human beings. Hadith 127. Narrated Abi Ayyub, once the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went out after sunset and heard a dreadful voice, and said, The Jews are being punished in their graves. Hadith 128. Narrated Musa bin Uqbah, from the daughter of Khalid bin Sa'id bin al-As, who said that she had heard the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, seeking refuge with Allah from the punishment in the grave. Hadith 129. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, used to invoke, Allah, O Allah. I seek refuge with you from the punishment in the grave, and from the punishment in the hell fire, and from the afflictions of life and death, and the afflictions of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal. Hadith 130. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, once passed by 2 graves and said, They, the deceased persons in those graves, are being tortured not for a great thing to avoid. And then added, Yes, they are being punished for a big sin, for one of them used to go about with calumnies, while the other never saved himself from being soiled with his urine. Ibn Abbas added, Then he took a green leaf of a date palm and split it into 2 pieces, and fixed 1 piece on each grave and said, May their punishment be abated till these 2 pieces get dry. Hadith 131. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, when any one of you dies, he is shown his place both in the morning and in the evening. If he is one of the people of paradise, he is shown his place in it, and if he is from the people of the hellfire, he is shown his place therein. Then it is said to him, this is your place till Allah resurrects you on the day of resurrection. Hadith 132. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, when the funeral is ready, for its burial, and the people lift it on their shoulders, then if the deceased is a righteous person he says, take me ahead, and if he is not a righteous one then he says, woe to it, me. Where are you taking it, me? And his voice is audible to everything except human beings, and if they heard it they would fall down unconscious. Hadith 133. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, any Muslim whose 3 children died before the age of puberty will be granted paradise by Allah because of his mercy to them. Hadith 134. Narrated Al-Bara, when Ibrahim, the son of Prophet, expired, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, there is a wet nurse for him in paradise. Hadith 135. Narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was asked about the children of Mushrikeen, pagans. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, replied, since Allah created them, He knows what sort of deeds they would have done. Hadith 136. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was asked about the offspring of pagans, Mushrikeen, so he said, Allah knows what sort of deeds they would have done. Hadith 137. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, every child is born with a true faith of Islam, that is, to worship none but Allah alone, and his parents convert him to Judaism or Christianity or Magianism, as an animal delivers a perfect baby animal. Do you find it mutilated? Hadith 138. Narrated Samurah bin Jundub, whenever the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, finished the morning prayer, he would face us and ask, who amongst you had a dream last night? So if anyone had seen a dream he would narrate it. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would say, Masha'Allah, an Arabic maxim meaning literally, what Allah wished, and it indicates a good omen. One day, he asked us whether any one of us had seen a dream. We replied in the negative. The Prophet said, but I had seen a dream last night that 2 men came to me, caught hold of my hands, and took me to the sacred land, Jerusalem. There, I saw a person sitting and another standing with an iron hook in his hand pushing it inside the mouth of the former till it reached the jawbone, and then tore off one side of his cheek, and then did the same with the other side. In the meantime the first side of his cheek became normal again, and then he repeated the same operation again. I said, what is this? They told me to proceed on, and we went on till we came to a man lying flat on his back, and another man standing at his head carrying a stone or a piece of rock, and crushing the head of the lying man, with that stone. Whenever he struck him, the stone rolled away. The man went to pick it up, and by the time he returned to him, the crushed head had returned to its normal state, and the man came back and struck him again, and so on. I said, who is this? They told me to proceed on, so we proceeded on and passed by a hole like an oven, with a narrow top and wide bottom, and the fire was kindling underneath that hole. Whenever the fire flame went up, the people were lifted up to such an extent that they were about to get out of it, and whenever the fire got quieter, the people went down into it, and there were naked men and women in it. I said, who is this? They told me to proceed on. So we proceeded on till we reached a river of blood and a man was in it, and another man was standing at its bank with stones in front of him, facing the man standing in the river. Whenever the man in the river wanted to come out, the other one threw a stone in his mouth and caused him to retreat to his original position, and so whenever he wanted to come out the other would throw a stone in his mouth, and he would retreat to his original position. I asked, "What is this?" They told me to proceed on, and we did so till we reached a well-flourished green garden having a huge tree, and near its root was sitting an old man with some children. I saw another man near the tree with fire in front of him, and he was kindling it up. Then they, that is, my two companions, made me climb up the tree and made me enter a house, better than which I have ever seen. In it were some old men and young men, women and children. Then they took me out of this house and made me climb up the tree and made me enter another house that was better and superior to the first, containing old and young people. I said to them, that is, my two companions, you have made me ramble all the night. Tell me all about that I have seen. They said, yes. As for the one whose cheek you saw being torn away, he was a liar and he used to tell lies, and the people would report those lies on his authority till they spread all over the world. So, he will be punished like that till the day of resurrection. The one whose head you saw being crushed is the one whom Allah had given the knowledge of Quran, that is, knowing it by heart, but he used to sleep at night, that is, he did not recite it then, and did not use to act upon it, that is, upon its orders etc., by day, and so this punishment will go on till the day of resurrection. And those you saw in the hole, like oven, were adulterers, those men and women who commit illegal sexual intercourse. And those you saw in the river of blood were those dealing in riba, usury. And the old man who was sitting at the base of the tree was Abraham, and the little children around him were the offspring of the people. And the one who was kindling the fire was Malik, the gatekeeper of the hellfire. And the first house in which you have gone was the house of the common believers, and the second house was of the martyrs. I am Gabriel and this is Michael. Raise your head. I raised my head and saw a thing like a cloud over me. They said, that is your place. I said, let me enter my place. They said, you still have some life which you have not yet completed, and when you complete that remaining portion of your life, you will then enter your place. Hadith 139. Narrated Hisham's father, Aisha said, I went to Abu Bakr during his fatal illness, and he asked me, in how many garments was the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, shrouded? She replied, in 3 suhuliyah pieces of white cloth of cotton, and there was neither a shirt nor a turban among them. Abu Bakr further asked her, on which day did the Prophet die? She replied, he died on Monday. He asked, what is today? She replied, today is Monday. He added, I hope I shall die sometime between this morning and tonight. Then he looked at a garment that he was wearing during his illness, and it had some stains of saffron. Then he said, wash this garment of mine and add 2 more garments and shroud me in them. I said, this is worn out. He said, a living person has more right to wear new clothes than a dead one, the shroud is only for the body's pus. He did not die till it was the night of Tuesday and was buried before the morning. Hadith 140. Narrated Aisha, a man said to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, my mother died suddenly, and I thought that if she had lived she would have given alms. So, if I give alms now on her behalf, will she get the reward? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, replied in the affirmative. Hadith 141. Narrated Aisha, during his sickness, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was asking repeatedly, where am I today? Where will I be tomorrow? And I was waiting for the day of my turn, impatiently. Then, when my turn came, Allah took his soul away, in my lap, between my chest and arms, and he was buried in my house. Hadith 142. Narrated Aisha, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, in his fatal illness said, Allah cursed the Jews and the Christians, for they built the places of worship at the graves of their prophets. And if that had not been the case, then the Prophet's grave would have been made prominent before the people. So, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was afraid, or the people were afraid that his grave might be taken as a place for worship. Hadith 143. Narrated Abu Bakr bin Ayyash, Sufyan at-Tammar told me that he had seen the grave of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, elevated and convex. Hadith 144. Narrated Urwa, when the wall fell on them, that is, graves, during the caliphate of Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik, the people started repairing it, and a foot appeared to them. The people got scared and thought that it was the foot of the Prophet. No one could be found who could tell them about it till I, Urwa, said to them, by Allah, this is not the foot of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, but it is the foot of Umar. Hadith 145. Aisha narrated that she made a will to Abdullah bin Zubayr, do not bury me with them, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his two companions, but bury me with my companions, wives of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in Al-Baqi, as I would not like to be looked upon as better than I really am, by being buried near the Prophet. Hadith 146. Narrated Amr bin Maymun al-Awdi, I saw Umar bin al-Khattab, when he was stabbed, saying, O Abdullah bin Umar, go to the mother of the believers Aisha and say, Umar bin al-Khattab sends his greetings to you, and request her to allow me to be buried with my companions. So, Ibn Umar conveyed the message to Aisha. She said, I had the idea of having this place for myself, but today I prefer him, Umar, to myself, and allow him to be buried there. When Abdullah bin Umar returned, Umar asked him, what news do you have? He replied, O chief of the believers, she has allowed you to be buried there. On that Umar said, nothing was more important to me than to be buried in that sacred place. So, when I expire, carry me there and pay my greetings to her, Aisha, and say, Umar bin al-Khattab asks permission, and if she gives permission, then bury me there, and if she does not, then take me to the graveyard of the Muslims. I do not think any person has more right for the caliphate than those with whom Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, was always pleased till his death. And whoever is chosen by the people after me will be the caliph, and you people must listen to him and obey him. And then he mentioned the name of Uthman, Ali, Talha, Az-Zubayr, Abdurrahman bin Auf and Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. By this time a young man from Ansar came and said, O chief of the believers, be happy with Allah's glad tidings. The grade which you have in Islam is known to you, then you became the caliph and you ruled with justice, and then you have been awarded martyrdom after all this. Umar replied, O son of my brother, would that all that privileges will counterbalance my shortcomings, so that I neither lose nor gain anything. I recommend my successor to be good to the early emigrants and realize their rights, and to protect their honor and sacred things. And I also recommend him to be good to the Ansar who before them had homes in Medina, and had adopted the faith. He should accept the good of the righteous among them and should excuse their wrongdoers. I recommend him to abide by the rules and regulations concerning the dhimmis, protectees, of Allah and His Apostle, to fulfill their contracts completely and fight for them, and not to tax, overburden, them beyond their capabilities. Hadith 147. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, don't abuse the dead, because they have reached the result of what they forwarded. Hadith 148. Narrated Ibn Abbas, Abu Lahab, may Allah curse him, once said to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, perish you all the day. Then the divine inspiration came, perish the hands of Abi Lahab. And perish he. Surah 111, Ayah 1.